for the WWF. This content issue has been on and off criticized, not just here in America, but in Canada as well, including TSN. And there's some trouble here based on, the salacious content, the questionable content, the risque content of Monday Night Raw. And Vince McMahon doesn't exactly make anything better when he visits Bob Costas on the record. And they're trying to pin him down about Trish Stratus being stripped down on Raw and being forced to bark like a dog. And the timing of that is coincidental with a Canadian Broadcast Standards Council ruling that comes down on April 10th, which is answering a lot of viewer complaints about the show. And they're bringing up Mae Young giving birth to a hand, and they're calling it vulgar, sleazy, sexist, and violent. Some real issues here. And the panel comes down on both TSN and Raw is War for code violations, in particular violating the National Television Code regarding sexist portrayals and remarks made during the broadcast by the likes of Jim Ross and Chris Irvine, who we know as Chris Jericho, including references to female characters on the show as wearing a $2 walking suit, that horny little she-devil, a filthy, dirty, disgusting, brutal skank, bottom feeding trash bag hoe. Yeah. Of course, the council is also finding fault with TSN for failing to provide adequate advisories during Raw to give them a heads up of the type of content that they're going to be seeing. And as a result, advertisers actually start to pull out a little bit. Pep Boys pulls out and puts a statement out. This is, interesting because it does feel like it was a prolonged problem. It feels like it started in 97. Here we are 4 years later. We're still talking about it, but clearly it's worked. All your competition's going out of business. Revenue's never been higher. But for whatever reason, it's finally catching up a little bit in Canada. But it's weird, in hindsight, that they didn't edit some stuff. Like when Rhino gored Molly Holly, they didn't edit that, which I think's interesting. What do you remember about the trouble with TSN?
I just remember it being another Canadian issue that, as you said, that there were some things that they edited, some things that they didn't, and they like to pick and choose. So you couldn't really tell what side they were on and what the hell they were going to be upset about or what they wouldn't. And they had the ability to edit every single thing that came into them, and they had the shows in advance, and they were able to, if there was something that might be the least bit questionable, we would inform them ahead of time and let them know, give them a heads up. So a lot of that goes on TSN, and a lot of that is after the fact, if they might get heat from particular groups where they would react. They were more reactive than proactive. And we tried to be proactive by letting them know, hey, this is what we're doing. This may be questionable. This is something you may want to look at. And if they felt it was okay, they would air it. That was their call. They decided what went on their network and what have you. Yes, it was controversial, and yes, it was a different time. It was a completely different time in society. You just have to do what it is that you can do. But those things were things that were taking place on the Canadian side where we were assured, no, everything's fine, and then they would be upset again over little things, but they wouldn't be upset over other things. So it just was a constant ongoing issue with folks at TSN, and depending upon what got the public riled up or what got some particular watchdog group riled up at the time.